The President of the Senate, Gospel Akpabio, has inaugurated a Senate ad hoc committee to investigate the ways and means, including the Anchor Boroughs program. The inauguration was attended by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Minister of Budget and National Planning, the CBN Governor, Accountant General of the Federation, Auditor General of the Federation, DG Debt Management Office, beneficiary MDAs, institutions, states, local governments, and others. In his inaugural address to the Ad Hoc Committee on Ways and Means, chaired by Senator Issa Jibrin, representing Kogi East, the President of the Senate charged the committee to leave no stone unturned in its findings. Senator Abdul Ningi, representing Bauchi Central Senatorial District in the National Assembly, is clarifying his stance regarding some claims he made about the 2024 Appropriation Act. Addressing Senate correspondents earlier today, the chairman of the Northern Senators Forum says he's ready to take responsibility even if it means suspension from the Senate. The lawmaker explained that he never suggested that President Bola Tinubu is implementing two budgets or that he was biased against the North. Meanwhile, the senator representing Ondo South Senatorial District, Senator Jimo Ibrahim, has asked the federal government to charge Senator Ningi to court for criminal misinformation and breach of peace in the National Assembly and the country by extension. The impeachment saga of the Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shuaibu, continues as the State House of Assembly says it will resort to substituted service to serve the impeachment notice on Mr. Shuaibu. The Speaker of the Edo State House of Assembly, Blessing Agbebaku, announced this during plenary on the floor of the House. According to him, Mr. Shuaibu has refused to acknowledge the impeachment notice sent to him from the court through DHL courier service. Mr. Agbebaku notes that the impeachment notice to the Deputy Governor, Philip Shuaibu, will now be served through a publication in national dailies. Barely 4 days after the councillor representing the ward of the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, resigned his position to support Governor Siminalayi Fubara, another group of Wike's supporters have collapsed their structure for Governor Fubara. Latest to join Fubara's camp are a group of 12 men who were local government coordinators of Grassroots Development Initiative, GDI, a political pressure group that was instrumental for the massive mobilization at the grassroots for the FCT minister while contesting the governorship elections in Rivers State since 2015. The former coordinator in Obiakwa local government area, Collins Onunwo, who led the delegation to the governor at the government house in Port Harcourt, says they decided to resign their leadership positions in GDI to protect, defend, and promote the interest of Rivers State and its people. And the former leader of the Obiakwa Legislative Council, Honorable Achonna, has been expelled by his ward chapter of the People's Democratic Party. In a letter titled Response to Expulsion of Honorable Achonna, dated 9th of March 2024 and signed by the PDP Ward 9 chairman in Obiakwa local government area, Collins Chukwu, the ward is accusing the lawmaker of failing to defend himself from allegations of misconduct and misappropriation, despite receiving multiple invitations to do so.
Thank you indeed, everyone. So let's get started. So President Bola Tinubu today announced that the federal government is set to launch the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, aimed at providing financial assistance to students pursuing higher education. The president emphasized that this initiative will commence soon, reflecting the government's commitment to enhancing access to quality education across the nation. So tonight we'll be looking at access to higher education as it affects Nigeria's human capital development. Don't forget that Access to Higher Education Act 2023 was signed into law by the president. But let me allow you to listen to what the president said about the student loan earlier today in Minna. Take a listen to President Tinubu.
Perseverance and consistency can make a nation buoyant. The student loan program will commence. There will be unemployment benefit for our graduates. The Social Security program for the elderly and vulnerable will commence. We are fine-tuning all of that area. That's going to relieve people of hunger.
So last month, the president inaugurated the special committee to oversee the Nigerian Education Loan Fund. And of course, the president set up that structure of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund to be headed by the Executive Secretary, Akeredolu Sawyer. Mr. Akeredolu Sawyer is our guest tonight on the program. He joins us live here in Abuja studio. Thanks so much, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you very much indeed for having me here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is novel. This is new to the Nigerian education landscape. We've heard it happen elsewhere around the globe, but this is the first time that Nigeria will be experiencing it. And the Establishment Act is the Access to Higher Education Act, which your office will be acting on, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. First of all, let me say what a laudable act it is. It's new, it's novel, but more important than that, it's very, very needed. There are many, many students, many intended students in this country who want to go on to higher education, who have the capacity, the capability, the desire to do so, but they're limited because of the funding that they don't have. And how much is the funding? Compared to many other countries, it's not very much. It's a bridge that should be closed so that they can jump across it and actually begin to enjoy the potential benefits of working to their own capacity and improving their own individual lives, but more equally as important, to improving the socioeconomic status of this country, this great, potentially great nation, Nigeria.
But this is a bit is slightly different from what we see in the UK, for example, or in some part of the US. This is specifically for indigent and low-income beneficiaries.
Sure, and I think that speaks to the fact that, you know, that's where the biggest problem is. You know, Nigeria is segmented into different stratas. Some people can afford to go and study abroad. Some people can afford to go to private universities or private tertiary institutions of other kinds. But in this country, we have many youth who are unable to achieve this, as I said, because of the gap, the financing gap. I think we have more than most countries in that regard, and we haven't addressed it for such a long time. It's about time that we start addressing it. And the president has signed into law this act which allows us to give this opportunity to our people, to our young people. These are people who are going to be our future leaders. These are people who are going to be competing globally with other nations to bring things back to this nation and make this nation great. So it's a really important act and a really important initiative. I can't overstate that.
June last year, the president signed that bill into law. February this year, he started putting the team together. Inauguration happened, and today he's saying that it will take off, but we do not know when that takeoff will be. But give us an understanding, because what we also hear is that that law seems not to represent exactly what the president intended, and there are possibilities of tweaking things because some lawmakers that we have spoken to, and in fact, the time that the president spoke about it, when Mr. Dele Alake at the time announced this initiative after the president signed into law, we engage some lawmakers who say, yes, a good initiative, but it has to be tweaked one way or the other. Is the government thinking about that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. I think what we need to recognize is that this law was actually passed through the House or through the National Assembly in the previous administration, during the previous administration. The motivations for this might have been slightly different. The landscape at the time was certainly very different. What we have now is that the president, when he came into office on the 12th of June, signed this into law. And the reality of it is that we've had to take stock and look at where we are, look at the position we're in, and say, okay, what do we do with this? It's not perfect. It's not a perfect law. However, do we throw away the baby with the bathwater, or do we start to activate this going forward? And by the way, in 10 years' time, when the landscape changes again, however perfect it might look when it's amended, it'll have to be tweaked again, because the idea is to continuously improve the situation in terms of education in this country. And as that position improves, we'll have to either change guidelines or change the law to reflect that.
The president was, there are a few people who took him up on this idea because it was a major campaign idea that the president took to the podium and he campaigned with it. And a lot of people were not surprised by it. By June, it was already moving. It was moving towards actualizing that campaign promise. Let's show our viewers what this law. When it was signed into law, this was a summary we gave to you what this law meant. It was meant to dismantle the financial barriers often hindering talented individuals from pursuing higher education by offering interest-free loans. They're supposed to be interest-free. It's supposed to, as an education loan fund, which is established by the Education Loan Fund law. And at the core of the student loan bill lies the establishment of the Nigerian Education Bank. And repayment, they say no cap on the amount students can access. The repayment of the loan begins exactly 2 years after the completion of the participation in the NYSC program. That was what I was able to glean. That was what I learned from reading through the draft of the bill. Does this represent what you're going to be working with?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, a great question. So let me reiterate. One of the guiding principles and one of the things that I believe Mr. President wanted to do with this was to make this an opportunity to bridge the financing gap for education as easy as possible. So this isn't intended to be onerous on those who are applying for these loans. That's one of the key reasons why it's an interest-free loan. Because, of course, as soon as you start to put interest on an education loan like this, the interest starts to mount and people become less focused on the education that they're trying to get. What this law is trying to do is to say, look, try and focus, now that we've bridged the gap for you as a government, try and focus on your studies so you're not worrying about how much the interest is going up by. We're trying to make it easy for people to make the decision as to whether or not they want to take the loan. Let me speak to the point about the 2 years after National Youth Service Corps. Very, very straightforward. What this loan says is, look, after 2 years after National Youth Service Corps is the time you are absolutely obliged to start looking at how you pay the loan back. It doesn't state that you must pay the loan back 2 years after NYSC. What it does say is that if you have a job, if you are earning, then you can start to pay the loan back. If you lose that job or you're not earning, you don't start paying back until you get a job. So again, it's trying to take away that burden. Loans have become a very dirty word, not just in this country, but in many parts of the world, where you take a loan, you don't pay back, somebody comes after you. This is not designed to be this way. This loan is supposed to help you focus, help you have a peace of mind, if you like, as you go through your educational process. And we've tried to make this as easy as possible. The other thing to bear in mind is that you don't want to criminalize somebody who's actually trying to improve themselves. We all have an obligation to be the best that we can be in anything that we do. If you start to put barriers in people's way, by giving the impression, for example, that you're going to come after them if they don't pay, or they're going to have to pay whether they have a job or not, these things are going to make it more difficult, as will interest rates. So it's there
are a lot of people who a few things which I'd like you to clarify. So quick questions. What is the benchmark? What is the mark? How much, what is the maximum any student can get?
Okay, so at the moment, we're looking purely at state-owned tertiary institutions.
That's university owned by the federal government alone.
Well, we're going to roll this out in phases, but at the moment we're looking at state-owned, so federal government, state governments, and then perhaps latterly, I know the president has expressed the view that actually every Nigerian should be entitled to get a loan to study wherever they want to study in this country. This act will make provision for that, but we're going to roll it out in phases so that we can learn as we go along and we can actually get to the people who need it most in the early phases. So you're right. We'll start with the federal universities. You asked about the benchmark. So today, there is an average cost for a session at an institution. In certain places, it's 100,000. Other places, it's 150, 200,000. Really depends on the course that you're studying. If you're studying medicine, it's one rate. If you're studying social anthropology, it's another rate. Some of these courses are 5 years, some are 3 years. So, it varies. But the intention is to give applicants who are successful, whose loan applications get approved, the opportunity to be funded through these loans all the way through their educational
journey. So there's no
journey.
collateral?
There's no collateral. There are obviously some eligibility criteria, which is clearly spelled out in the law.
So that's another problem. The criteria is bring a civil servant who is so, bring a judge that is this, bring the requirement looks like encumbrance. That makes it more difficult. If you're asking that indigent student should be able to have access, and you're asking them to bring all of these instruments for them to be able to get a facility, there are those who think that that is not genuine enough.
Okay, so again, let's go back to the fact that this is a loan. It's not a grant, it's a loan. And, in as much as it's an interest-free loan and we're making it easy for people to access this loan, we still also have to remember that these are public funds. These funds belong to you and I and other people, and we have to disperse these funds responsibly. We have to ensure that those who we're giving the funds to, one, are using it for the right thing, and those are catered for by direct disbursements to tertiary institutions. But we also need to know that the people that are applying for these loans and are getting these loans actually are able to qualify for them by showing not so much collateral, but that they are bona fide members of society, people who are well-intentioned, and therefore there are certain criteria.
So the criteria have been criticized, and perhaps in tweaking the law, maybe the federal government will also be thinking, if people have all of these people around them, they wouldn't need these loans. So if you're asking them to bring a leg and an arm to salvage a broken leg, why do they need a loan if there is a proper leg in the first place? Sure. So the question is, are you thinking, if you want to make the lives of the average Nigerian better or the indigent student better, are you trying as much as possible to make it easier for them?
Okay, so remember at the beginning of our conversation, I said that, this law is not perfect. To a large degree, we're going to need to see how it plays out, okay? But it's better than nothing. At the moment, we have a law introduced during the previous administration's tenure. Today, we've inherited something that we think is a good start. It's workable. As soon as we start to operate this, we are going to look at where we need to tweak it, what the uptake is. I can tell you today that, there are 1.2 million people in tertiary institutions, publicly owned tertiary institutions in Nigeria today. When applications come in, we could get 5 million applications. We simply don't know. There's pent-up demand for education in this country. And when that comes through, we're going to have to sift through it and ensure that, we make it easy for those who really need it, and maybe not so easy for those who don't.
There are other side, you talked about the benchmark, because there are those who will say, don't make it about the money or make it about the cost, because if the federal government or the government owns this institution, and the whole idea is to allow students to be able to go to school. And those in my father's time, when they were in the university, some of the subsidies they got in going to school included lunch, included breakfast, included dinner. I remember that my uncle would tell me that his cousins will come visit him in the hostel, and they have half a chicken for a lunch, and they could all share. And those who were saying, look, these days there will be departmental fees, faculty fees, university fees, these fees and these other fees, apart from the tuition and all the hostel fees and all what have you. They're thinking that the loan should cover all the gamut of what we allow the student to be able to see himself or herself through the first year to the end of his education. Is that how it will play out?
Absolutely. The whole idea of this is to give students who are successful at applying for the loan unfettered access to classes. In other words, there should be no hidden fees, there should be no extra fees. Once they apply for the loan, this fund will cover the entire gamut of institutional fees for that particular student. Okay, so the funds will be disbursed directly to the institution, and the agreement with the institution is that The student is allowed unfettered access to classes, to lectures, to tutorials, and to, to examination rooms. The idea is to take all of these things off the table and allow the student unfettered access.
About if the plan of the federal government, for example, is what it's called, the law itself is called Access to Higher Education Act, which means that it is not about only going to school. It is basically for you to have access to education. And access, you cannot go to school with empty stomach. So, and that's what I'm asking. Will it include everything that will be needed for you to go to school, including maybe some meals?
Okay, so again, we have to act within the law. The law we have today only allows us to cover institutional fees. We already established in our conversation so far that there are other areas that we perhaps need to look at, other areas we need to tweak, so that it's reflective of the realities. The truth about it is you're absolutely right. If you cover institutional fees for some people, if they don't have funds to do photocopying, to feed themselves, to buy data, to pay for telephone access, there are a whole gamut of other fees or other costs
to the learning process.
So what we're doing here, it's an intuitive process. What we're doing here is say, look, let's start with what we've got. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not try and start, putting another bill through the National Assembly.
Mr. Sawyer, let me ask you a difficult question.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced any scholarship?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I have indeed, yes. Yeah. I had a student grant.
A foreign scholarship.
Yeah.
In fact, some of these scholarships will entail your flight ticket.
I've never had one of those.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That some of those will entail you getting the flight ticket from your where you're coming from to your desk, and when you're returning to your home country. Some of these scholarships are as inclusive as much, and perhaps throwing these. Maybe when you're tweaking it, you might be able to, because people were indigent. I didn't come from a background that was so nice that I could pay for everything. So I experienced what it means to come from a difficult background. So I can tell you what it means that if a student wants to get access, the access has to be all-inclusive. And this brings me to the question of the repayment plan. It's 2 years after NYSC. A lot of people are still there. 6 years, 5 years after NYSC, no jobs. That is a problem. So their case will not be like some loan companies who chase after you when you are not able to pay.
Sure. Look, the point you make is well taken. Unemployment, I think it's 35% youth unemployment in this country today. There are other initiatives of government that are seeking to address this. The truth about it is that we are giving loans to successful applicants. We need those loans to be paid back. Why? One of the primary reasons we need those loans to be paid back is that there are people in the queue. There are other people wanting to come into the scheme and get loans. In terms of repayment, as I said earlier, it's 2 years after youth service. If, and I reiterate, if they have a job. This doesn't mean that people can't pay back early. There are some who get very lucky. They end up with oil companies and banks, and they're able to do that. Or they have an uncle somewhere who says, I'm going to liquidate your loan for you. Look, but you're right. The people who need it the most need a higher education. Why do they need higher education? Because they need jobs. There's a percentage of these people who are going to get jobs just by the sheer fact that they've got a better education than the one that they had before. There are clearly going to be some who are going to struggle to get jobs. We're going to have to address this incrementally. Yeah. These are issues. These are national issues. And I think what the president has done here is kick the ball forward, and we've just got to support it. Yeah. We're ready to launch this right now. Everything is in place for us to launch.
So your office is ready?
Our office is ready. We're ready to launch.
You have the website, the portal?
We have the portal. Once the president signs off and gives us it, we're going to launch this program.
Students are writing exams in some federal universities. So hopefully by when the next session will start, they might be able to get access to it. Is that possible?
I think the president's intention was for us to get here a lot faster. he really wants to get this going, and we're going to do everything to support that process. And I, as the Executive Secretary of NEL Fund, will tell you today that we are ready to start this program. We're getting help and support, and because it's a process and it's one that you have to hold hands with other agencies, we're getting help. We're getting support from agencies like NIMSI because it's,
the law talks about the education bank. Is that going to start immediately?
No, this is a loan fund. This fund is entirely independent.
So you start ad hoc until you go into full blown.
We're going to start with the fund, and we're going to effectively allow people to access this fund through a portal that has no human intervention. So there's no opportunity for anyone
no political
influence, no votes for loans, no votes for other things, no demigods. We want to take all of this out of the system because these are the most vulnerable people.
So is it possible also that it's going to be merit? If you are able to pass well your JAM, your entrance examination, you might easily be able to apply for this because proving that you are indigent, that's another thing.
Yeah. So we haven't linked this to performance, okay? We've linked it to a couple of things. First of all, you have to want to take the loan. Secondly, you have to be a Nigerian, and the NIN confirms that. You have to be financially included. The BVN confirms that, and we can also use it to recover the funds we need. And the JAM number obviously confirms that you're a student or an intended student. But we're ready to launch, and we've designed a fantastic portal for us to be able to do that.
Yeah. Mr. Akeredolu Sawyer, as soon as you launch these and you get off the ground and off to scratch, please do let us into your programs and let Nigerians also be able to get a benefit of this, which looks like a good idea if were implemented. That's the problem.
It will be well implemented. It's well intended. The president has done the right thing. It will be well implemented. It's currently with the CBN again. So we want absolute transparency around how all this works. So thank you very much, and we'll be happy to come back and give Nigerians an update on this as soon as you want us back. This is a great initiative, and it belongs to Nigerians, and it will always belong to Nigerians.
Mr. Sawyer, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, Sheila.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break, but when we come back, we'll be speaking with the Senior Staff Association President, who are planning to go on strike. The President, Mr. Mohammed Ibrahim, will be joining us to let us in on the plans of the group in ensuring that they drive home their points on their grievances. Mohammed Ibrahim will be joining us. But let us also tell our viewers that the spokesperson to the president, Ajuri Ingilale, engages in a no-holds-barred interview with Chude Judionwo tonight on Channels Television from 8 p.m. And we'd like you to have a snippet of that interview.
The expenditure of billions of dollars of our foreign reserves was done largely without the approval or knowledge, believe it or not, of President Muhammadu Buhari and President Bola Tinubu. That might seem hard for some people to believe, and I want to explain how that could have happened.
Yes.
Now, we had one of the few central banks in the world where the day-to-day CEO, who is the governor of the central bank, was also the chairman of the board of directors, essentially. So he was essentially overseeing himself. I do understand that, yes, there was the Naira scarcity, and yes, obviously the CBN had its own rule in that. I don't know that that was an attack on President Bola Tinubu as an individual as much as that was an attack on the Nigerian people. I mean, we had millions of people who are on minimum wage and above who they're not issuing corrupt contracts. They're not involved in any type of malfeasance. They go to work every morning, come back late. They go to the bank and they simply can't access their own hard-earned money. When you have people, for example, in the north, dying in hospitals because they cannot access money that they earned legitimately because of the moves of some people in the CBN, I think that is the type of activity that will attract a curse that would be difficult for any man to escape.
Thank you so much, and welcome back to the program. So we switch gears now, still staying on education, but this time around it looks like a stalemate somewhat. The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, and the non-academic staff union have declared a 7-day warning strike beginning on the 18th of March 2024 to demand the payment of 4 months of their members' withheld salaries after the 2022 nationwide strike. Decision was part of the resolution of the Joint Action Committee of the two unions after a meeting which held in Akure at the weekend. Don't forget that earlier, a few days ago, the same unions have come together to give a 7-day ultimatum for the government to respond to the agitation, but it does look like no response. Tonight, let's speak with the president of SANU, Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim, who joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
2 Sundays ago, you were right there on that chair, and you were saying, you're reeling out your grievances and what the problems are, because I understand now that some students in federal universities are presently writing exams. And you said that if you and your members begin to down tool or go on strike, it will shut down the activities and the doors of our university. But now, it does look like the federal government did not listen to you. What really happened after the 7-day ultimatum you gave the federal government?
Well, Sheun, it's quite unfortunate once again to come here and still lament to the insensitive nature of some of our government officials because when this thing came up, we took the paths of honor and civilization because our unions met, discussed, and we realized that there was need to reach out to those that matter, to those that are responsible for whatever that would have happened. Clearly, we gave them the benefit of the doubt that this could be a mistaken, there's an error somewhere. And we wrote our protest letter to draw the attention of government. Clearly, we wrote to the Chief of Staff, to the President, and then, of course, the minister supervising the Ministry of Education. And we drew their attention to the injustice made on our members. And 2 weeks down the line, there is no official response. And our members' agitation continues to grow. And we, at our meeting in Akure, over the last week, we met on Thursday and Friday. And the decision we took was that probably the only language the government understands is when we down tools. And this is what we have tried to avoid. But clearly, is unavoidable at this point.
Did they open any channel of communication after when you issued that ultimatum notice?
No official communication.
Nobody spoke to you from the SGS office, from the Chief of Staff office, from the Presidency, from the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Education's office? Nobody?
Nobody officially communicated with us.
And you reached out to them officially?
Definitely.
Up till now, there is nothing?
There is nothing.
And so you are now, what is the nature of your notice of industrial action?
Well, because in our union, we also have organs. And our constitution clearly spells out how we embark on industrial actions. First is to declare industrial dispute, which we did. And then, of course, meet at the different organs. The National Executive Committee, which is the highest decision-making body of the union, met in Akure, and we discussed, and we took the resolution that we should ask our branch leaders to go back to their branches to engage with our members and sensitize them, giving another 1 week. Like you mentioned, by the 18th, the national leadership of Joint Action Committee will fully declare the strike if nothing is done by then.
That's next Monday?
Next Monday, yes.
And confirm to us, from what I gathered, that some universities are writing exams right now.
Definitely, yes.
Is it most universities or some?
Well, because of the disruptions here and there, the calendar is no longer seamless. It's no longer the same. So there are some that are in different semesters, some in first semesters, some in second semesters. So depending on where they are, but I know clearly there are some universities that, currently, going through their exams. Others have just resumed, and so on and so forth. But it's quite unfortunate that we have to take this painful decision, like I said, some of us also have our children in such schools. But when we strike, definitely everything is grounded. Because
give us an understanding, because we need to start directing the blame or directing the action to those in government that should take action, because never should it happen in this country again where our universities will be shut for another 8 months, for another, even for a day. It doesn't just make sense for universities to be shut and students who have signed a contract with universities owned by government that they will spend 4 years, they end up spending 8 years, 7 years, and 6 years for a 4-year course. It doesn't just make sense. Who naturally should address your grievance in government? Which office?
This is a case of Mr. President granting a waiver to all university workers who went on strike in 2022.
Including the teaching staff,
yes, and
the junior teaching staff and the non-teaching staff, like your association and that of NASU.
Exactly. And in implementing Mr. President's waiver, they decided to choose one group and leave the other 3.
Which office did this? Is it the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Finance? Which office? Because we need to know and be able to exactly...
Payments to university workers is done by the Office of the Accountant General through the IPPIS office. That is how it's done. The Ministry of Education has no hand in this as far as we know.
So the directive came from the Office of President,
yes,
who announced the waiver,
yes,
and who said, go ahead and pay.
Yes.
They pay the teaching staff,
yes,
which is ASU.
Yes.
But NASU and SANU
were left out.
Have been left out. Yes. And 4 months now,
yes,
you have not been paid.
Yes.
And this is a grievance of 2002.
Coming 2022.
2022, rather. Yes. 2022, dovetailing into last year when the president made that, gave that directive. Yes. Give us an understanding. Naturally, should we be holding the Accountant General accountable for this failure? Most definitely.
Most definitely, because the memo that came from the presidency was addressed to the finance minister and down to the Accountant General of the Federation. And we are fully aware that these are how things are done. You know, the Accountant General gives the go-ahead to the Director IPPIS to pay university workers, because everything about personnel costs is handled by the IPPIS office. So it's just a case of, like I said the other time I came here, of a directive given and directive being implemented.
Have you queried the reason from the Accountant General's office, maybe covertly or overtly?
Well, we tried our best to get to know this, but you know, they have a way they operate. And these are not things that will come here and say in the public.
No, but is it that the federal government does not have the money to pay you? It's one thing that the president gave the directive. It's another thing that the federal government has the money presently to be able to pay you.
Where did they get the money they paid ASU?
No, but maybe they don't have to pay everyone. They don't have enough to pay everyone. I'm just trying to probe to know what the problem really is, because there should be a reason why they left NASU and SANU out of the payment.
And this is $1 million question, because no one can answer that apart from them.
But what is your intelligence telling you? What are the information? Because your staff are so senior that you know how the system works.
Exactly.
You must be able to unofficially understand why this has been delayed.
Clearly, it's a misplacement of priority. If you leave me, that's what it is. Because if people who work in government clearly knows what it takes to run a system, they shouldn't have, you know, sideline one. It's a chain. The university system is a chain. And you know, in a chain, sometimes the greatest strength is its weakest link. So you do not expect to treat one part of the system, you know, very carefully and then leave others, or they are treated lackadaisically. So whoever that is responsible in this clearly has shown that they do not understand how the system operates.
So I am anti-shutting down the university. Is it possible, since you can pinpoint on the office that is lacking or lagging in these, the office of the Accountant General, you fingered that office. Is it possible that your associations picket the office of the Accountant General, Accountant General of the Federation, rather than shutting the doors to the students, innocent students at that?
Well, we are a group of civilized people who are intelligent, who have been to school and know exactly how we should operate. We are not a gang, a group of gangsters that will just go and shut government offices every now and then. The idea of exposing this to the press and writing letters to government offices and to those who that matter is to draw the attention of the public. There is no one in this country and even beyond that do not know that there is a problem in the system, because we have been on this matter in the last 2 weeks. We have written all those that are supposed to be written, and that we expect that by now those in government should have drawn the attention of those that matter. So where they do not do this...
Labour, part of the option of Labour in driving at home their point is picketing. You could picket.
Yes, definitely.
You could down tool.
Definitely.
You can protest.
Exactly.
So picketing is part of it. I'm saying, why don't you look at that option instead of shutting the classrooms and disallow the student to write exams or to learn or to go to school? If the Accountant General is the one that is responsible for it, picket his office or our office. Don't let her get into our office until she pays.
What a Labour leader has in his kitty is a toolbox. And in that toolbox are some of the things you have mentioned. And as of today, the decision that we are about to take or have taken is that of a 7 days warning strike to shut the system. And therefore, this will send jitters and signals to those of them in government. Where that fails, of course, other options are also there. And such picketing may not be out of place if we do. And then finally, it could also degenerate into a total shutdown for a period of time that we do not want to envisage. So what we are saying is that we still believe today is Monday, and we expect that we still have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for government to act. When they wanted to pay ASU, they started payments over the weekend. So it's not impossible
for them to pay.
Exactly.
So if you receive payment, you will not go. But if you don't receive payment by Monday, you will shut down the university.
Definitely, most definitely. And shutting down the university clearly is beyond even how it will affect the students, because it's everybody. There will be no electricity, there will be no water, there will be no security, there will be no hostels for students, and everything, you know, there will be no administration. And to surprise you is that even vice chancellors are involved in this, because VCs have not been paid, registrars have not been paid, bosses have not been paid. So what type of decision, who are those behind it?
To be calling people that are, I mean, it's good that you said it's the Accountant General of the Federation's office that is involved in this. The Accountant General of the Federation, on behalf of the Nigerian people, we are pleading. We do not want the universities to be shut down again because of unions that are threatening strike. We hope that somebody in government will take action for the sake of our country. We're facing too much troubles already, hardship in the land, than our students and children to be staying at home again. But thank you so much, Mr. Mohammed Ibrahim, President of SAN, for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, please, I plead with you and your members to please, if possible, picket the Accountant General office rather than shutting down the classroom. Please, I'm begging you. We do not want what some of us experience in our days in university, spending more than we needed to spend for any of these students to be able to do that again. No, it should not happen. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. At the top of the hour, the spokesperson of the president, Ajuri Ingilale, in a no-holds-barred conversation with Chude Gideonwo, will be speaking about a whole lot of stuff in the Tinubu government. It's going to happen at the top of the hour. That's 8 p.m. That's our show for tonight, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. God bless Nigeria.